GM, everybody. Welcome to the XDC RWAi Agent Developer Sprint. My name's Ellis. I'm the founder of Cracked Labs, and we will be your hosts for this great event. Today, we've got Sal and Jonathan joining us from the XDC network and community, and Austin also joining from the Cracked Labs side. So today, guys, a little bit more about what this developer sprint is all about. What the hell is RWA? What is RWAi? Where's the intersection? And how can we get involved with agents in the developer ecosystem within XDC? Because there's a lot of cool stuff that we can do. So with that, just a little bit of a background on Cracked before we dive in. Again, I'm Ellis, I'm the founder. Cracked is an invite-only crypto AI incubator and accelerator that is literally dead focused on helping builders who ship. We work with some of the best partners and tier 1, L1s, and L2s in the game. And we are very excited to be hosting this event with XDC. With that, Jonathan, why don't we introduce you and talk a little bit about what is XDC Network and what is the whole point of this sprint that we are putting together?
Yeah, hey, thanks, Ellis. Many of you have seen me before in the XDC community. I run the XDC community Twitter handle with a couple of other community members. And so what is RWAi? Well, Solomon here from the XDC Foundation can speak upon a lot of the accelerators and things that they've been doing with real world assets, RWAs within the XDC ecosystem itself. So we take the RWA, real world assets, and the AI, artificial intelligence, and we're putting them together as RWAi. And we formed a 4-week developer competition. And with our 10 ecosystem sponsors, we're able to offer $78,000 USD in total prizes to create AI-driven solutions to manage RWAs on the XDC network. If we want, Solomon, why don't you jump into a little bit about XDC Foundation, or maybe an overview of what you guys are doing with RWAs, a quick sentence, and about yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the invite, Jonathan, and guys. Nice seeing you again. Definitely, the XDC Foundation has been working with Plug and Play to introduce institutions already building in Web 2 that wanted to start building on Web 3. So there was a great push with Plug and Play to bring all these institutions to the ones to build on chain. Initially, I believe there were going to be 10 selected. We ended up selecting 11 of these projects. There've been different posts about all the selected teams. I don't have them handy with me right now, so I'll mention them. But just to keep it short, these teams are building on chain at the moment, and with Plug and Play, and they're creating the next wave of institutions building on chain.
Amazing.
And we might as well round it out with Austin, right?
Yeah, Austin, say hello.
Of course, can't forget about me. Yeah, hi, my name's Austin. I'm a co-founder over here at Cracked Labs. I have an engineering background and now doing a lot helping facilitating workshops of just kind of really helping gear these kinds of events to be better for the developer. Because like I spent years competing in like incubators and hackathons and accelerators. So I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of it and kind of what kind of support you expect and everything. So here to help you guys out.
Yeah, and Austin's going to be the one really hosting a lot of the workshops, getting deep into the hands-on of how to use the ELIZA framework and how to integrate XDC using the Go plugin. So Austin's going to be a great support for the whole team.
Definitely.
Thanks, Austin. Thanks, Sal, for being here. And I'm going to jump into more specifics about the RWAi Dev Sprint.
Awesome. And yeah, I mean, we have such a huge number of high-profile partners on this one too. It could really evolve pretty quick.
Yeah, so, I'm going to get into. That's a good point. Let me touch on that too.
You riff. We'll just be here.
All right, man. So as I mentioned, 4-week coding challenges for developers. Now, we would like to see an MVP on mainnet. I know it's difficult, especially when you're working with RWAs and you're trying to add value to the ecosystem. We're looking for builders who want to build and that can deliver within those 4 weeks something of value to the ecosystem. Developers are encouraged to create different solutions that maybe focus on different real-world challenges across asset management, compliance, risk, trade finance, or even just RWA trading itself. And so you may think of agents that could include portfolio optimization in risk management, asset valuation and monitoring, compliance and KYC automation, fractional ownership, documentation verification. And you see a lot of agents do this right now, but the DeFi, right? The yield optimization, the liquidity management, the arbitrage trading, and other types of DeFi functions. By combining the transparency of blockchain and the decentralization, along with AI's data processing, we're really aiming to address these real-world financial challenges like slow processes or limited access to different markets, right? Ellis talks about the ecosystem. So one of the main reasons XDC community is here is to help support the ecosystem and bring the community together. And so we reached out to many of the ecosystem partners, and they were able to provide developer tools and obviously the incentives needed to build these RWAi applications. And so I'm going to get into them. We were just joking a little bit earlier. None of them could be here except for Sal, because I think every single one of them are out in Dubai right now. But let's get into it. So XDC network. Thank you to the XDC network. The blockchain is very specific to supporting trade finance, real-world asset tokenization. It's highly optimized, EVM compatible with a dedicated proof-of-stake mechanism. This provides the highest level of security, fast transaction times, and enhanced scalability. So thank you to the XDC network for allowing us to actually host and run this Dev Sprint. The XDC Foundation, thank you, Sal. And if anyone isn't following Sal, we'll put his Twitter handle down here. It's funny, we were just talking about this. He's developing quite a really interesting AI to help support the XDC network itself. And one of the things that his AI is going to be doing is looking at the XDC USDC bridge. And the XDC Foundation specifically is helping the support of this RWAi Dev Sprint by encouraging network usage and collaborating with the key infrastructure providers as part of this Dev Sprint to deploy on-chain RWAs and really focus on that integration of the bridge. And so using the bridge, using the SDC, USDCE Circle certified bridge to bring over USDC to the XDC network. And so really looking at that TVL and bringing stablecoins on chain. We kicked off this sprint, the announcement, with ELIZA OS. And ELIZA represents that sort of fusion of AI and blockchain, aiming to democratize autonomous agent development. And so they offer a lightweight, developer-friendly framework that will allow non-traditional devs to bring AI agents, sophisticated AI agents, to the blockchain. We added GOAT. And so GOAT is sponsored by CrossMint, and they're a leading agentic toolkit. And I believe there's over 200 now plugins for GOAT that allow you to connect agents to on-chain apps, leverage different blockchains, different cryptos, different stable coins, and integrate wallets to your agents and really act like that economic advisor. Part of the XDC Foundation RWA with Plug and Play, one of their projects was Polytrade. And Polytrade has also joined the RWAi Dev Sprint, and they're a leading tokenized RWA marketplace with over 5,000, and it keeps growing, RWAs, 50 plus protocols across 11 chains, really leading that RWA adoption, the marketplace where everyone can come and join. Civic Technology is the provider of tokenized identity. And what they want to see is use of their authentication SDK, which is really cool. They were actually part of a hackathon that Ellis and I did about 2 years ago. And they bring cross-chain, on-chain representation of identity. And within about 5 minutes, you can get their auth tool up and running. And we'll be having a workshop on that. Ellis wasn't joking. There's a lot of projects here. I'm almost done, Ellis.
There's a shitload.
We got ACA Finance, and they just joined on last Friday, and they're a liquidity aggregator, really trying to simplify DeFi trading. Again, cross-chain asset swaps, minimal slippage, AI driven, really to get you the optimal rates. They're going to bring sort of that single interface, minimizing the complexities for your agents to do multi-chain trading, evaluation, etc. There are 2 oracles that signed up. One, I have to give a big shout out to Plugin, XDC's decentralized oracle. And again, I think Sal has been part of the XDC community ecosystem for probably now 4 years or so. I think Sal was running a couple of PLI nodes and really helped PLI with their decentralization. And PLI has grown over many years, really offering that reliable real-time data feed for your stable coins, crypto prices, commodities, proof of reserves, all built on XDC. So awesome to plug in. And more recently, XDC ecosystem had Quex technology added. And Quex, they're building their intelligent data oracles, but with TEE, so trusted execution environments. And we're going to have a live space and a workshop with Quex to really dive into what is TEE, how is it being used for oracles, and what is the security that they can provide for that that on-chain, off-chain data for RWA prediction markets, DeFi, and other applications. And so round it all off, we have StoreX Network, which is our DePIN storage, cloud storage provider, enterprise-grade security from, again, built on XDC, one of the very first projects, I believe, that was using the XDC network. And having that decentralized storage really allows data security, accessibility, and tamper-proof. And so you can really see that the ecosystem that we've put together for this sprint, we have DeFi, oracles, storage, cross-chain liquidity pools, stable coins, authentication. We brought that entire RWA lifecycle from Polychain, the marketplace. We brought that lifecycle from token creation to authentication to trading, really all together empowering the developers to build an innovative and comprehensive solution over the next 4 weeks. So I'll stop there and allow the other 3 to jump in with some commentary on just how the size of what we're trying to do here.
Man, let me dive in and just kind of tear some stuff to shreds if that's cool with you guys.
Yeah, man.
All right, let's go. So I think it's important, first of all, that we talk a little bit about what is XDC, what separates XDCs from, say, any other L2 Ethereum adjacent chain, right? What is trade finance and why the hell does it matter if AI agents are there, right? And let's speak to some of these things about how bringing in these types of sprints can actually do two things at once. Number one, helping to increase transaction volume on XDC network and also helping to unlock different methods for additional TVL at the end of the day. So let's kick it off with something a little bit meaty, right? So XDC is always focused on utility. What does that mean to the protocol in regards to trade finance and the intersection of agents? And Sal, this one might actually be a good one for you, but do you have any idea in terms of like where XDC is hoping to be on a roadmap perspective? Where does the agent infrastructure, the agent hype cycle, the fact that it is probably the most groundbreaking historic moment in humanity outside of, say, evolution, right? What do we think that the intersection of RWA and AI could look like in, say, 12, 36, however many months, right? So 1, 3, 5 years out.
Yeah, definitely. I think AI in itself has exploded in the past, let's say, 2 years, right? Definitely, we've seen how different applications are slowly integrating AI and the production increase that has happened with the utilization of AI. Now, when we talk about, let's say, the XDC network has always been with enterprise in mind and trade finance. When we look at those things, real world assets being tokenized on XDC network, that increases decreases the time that businesses in their processes. Let me rephrase that. When enterprises integrate blockchain, right, it expedites or reduces the amount of time that it takes them to complete process from A to B to C. Now, with the integration of AI on top of that, now you can automate these things and be on chain at the same time. And you can create applications that either look at all those processes and represent it in data, in graphs, or however you want to represent it, right? So if we look at how the AI applications or the applications that have added AI to it, for monitoring the network, for example, right? The entry barrier to those, it's usually high, meaning if a business wants to apply for an application or get a license for an application, it's usually a lot of money, right? So when we try to build this in-house, like we're doing it right now with RWAi AI, this is allowing the small businesses, the startups that are trying to capture some of this market, to have accessible tools and resources to launch these applications and expedite the growth for, obviously, the institutions that are utilizing this.
So yeah, let me expand upon that a little bit. I talked about XDC, right? Enterprise grade, speed, reliability, security. Look, AI agents on blockchains aren't new. We have Ethereum and Solana. They host a lot of AI agents. XDC enhanced with AI is going to stand out because of our enterprise grade RWA solutions that are already coming on track. We also have a hybrid blockchain and different strategic initiatives that are all aligned around RWA tokenization. And our head of the XDC Foundation's head of compliance, Shane, put out a great post, I think it was a couple of days ago, about the 5 cool things about RWA. And the 5 things that we've been doing, what XDC's been doing with RWAs before it was a cool term. And it heads all the way back to, I believe, 2021, when we did the first NFT for trade finance. I mean, you could have called it real world asset tokenization of a trade finance electrical bill of lading, but that wasn't the definition back then, right? And so XDC has been in the world of trade finance building for the past 5+ years. Some of the strengths that we bring: hybrid architecture, right? So we have the public chains and the private, the subnets. Now, who knows? Maybe someone builds an AI agent that launches a private subnet that holds the data for some of these RWA applications. That's an absolute thing. If you want a GitHub repository for our subnets, we can work with you on that. We have the institutional ties, whether it comes from RWA specific projects that are blockchain, or if it's custodians or real world banking or the ITFA. We have those connections over time. Look at the accelerators that are coming on board, and Solomon talked about specifically the plug and play accelerator. Every single one on that accelerator is a project that is building, and they're serious about building, and they're now building with XDC to bring even a larger ecosystem together. And our hope with kicking off the RWAi is for some of the builders that are in this dev sprint actually reach out and work with some of those. I mean, who doesn't want to have an automated interface to an RWA marketplace, right? I'm sure that Polytrade would love to have that built. I know that they already started doing some of their own AI. Over the course of these 4 weeks, we can make those connections with these teams that devs may not have been able to make connections to before. And we can bring them in and build out this ecosystem of AI and RWA. We could get to some of the nitty gritties, like you said, about XDC, about its low cost scalability, its transaction fees, but I don't want to talk transaction fees, right? We could talk about interoperability and compliance with ISO 2022, our messaging, XDC Cash APIs that are out there for payments. These are all sort of things that I guess maybe Sal and I take for granted because we're in the ecosystem for so long. But that's what I see. That's my big picture, Ellis.
I think that it is pretty important to kind of mention how early AI and XDC are when being joined together. This is really, and Jonathan, this is all to your credit, this is the first instance that we're seeing of XDC plus AI in a lot of the different popular plugins in Stack that's being used to create agents right now. So
Absolutely.
Looking at the partners that we have on board, we've got Eliza OS, which is the open source framework for agents. We've got CrossMet, which basically allows for those agents to do a bunch of cool shit on chain. Same thing is true with almost every single one of these partners, right? So it's not as point and shoot as click these 3 buttons and let's deploy an agent into a marketplace. It's a little bit more nuanced where you're going to actually be able to get in there, find use cases where other people have not built yet. And you can build these projects that actually fill gaps in the ecosystem to some degree and help to make it just easier to do all this stuff on chain, right? Let's face it. So what I think we might want to talk about for a second is like RWAs as a term are very broad, right? Basically, the way that I like to think about it is like, what's an RWA? Well, it's everything that is not everything else that was not crypto and stocks, the last 3 years is now coming in. So whether that's real estate, commodities, bonds, there's a million different ways to slice this thing up, right? So I think that one of the things might be interesting is to kind of silo some of this, where builders that are watching, you should be looking at different types of builds where there's financial builds, there's physical asset builds, there's IP within RWAs, right? It's not as simple as just simply, make token go up at the end of the day. It's more,
one of the things that isn't even on here, but it should be noted, and you're right, is many of these RWA are these AI agents that are being deployed. They come with their own token, right? They want you to buy their token or what have you. That's not our goal here. Our goal here isn't just to launch tokens. I feel as though if you need a token, you should use XDC, right? If AI agents are going to be interacting with each other and building out this economy of maybe AI agent to AI agent communication, they're doing work with each other. They should just use XDC to pay each other for the services. We don't need to make tokens to solve this problem, right? We're trying to bring automation and AI, I guess, to the network, right? We're not asking people to launch tokens for the network. It's solving real world issues. And that could be, if you look at it, I mean, people could make tooling, right? There was the Eliza OS plugins.
Right, exactly.
There's the GOAT SDK. I mean, every project on here could have a toolkit made. So, for instance, there could be a portfolio management agent. There could be a risk assessment agent, a trade optimization agent, a data oracle agent. And they could all tie to very specific projects. So maybe someone goes and builds a storage SDK for GOAT. So anyone can go use StoreX's technology on XDC.
Actually, that's a really good point, Jonathan. One of the things that I've seen other projects doing is they are, for example, you have your layer 1, right? And then you have all your layer 2s, all the different applications that are being built on top of it. Some of these projects, right, they have, just like XDC, they have the Oracle services, they have this decentralized storage, DePIN. They also have different DeFi protocols, right? But the most important thing is how do you utilize these applications on chain and encourage anyone else that's building on chain to utilize, for example, the oracles, how to utilize the decentralized storage, because you have StoreX on one hand and you have plugin, right? Both very important, but one thing that I'm seeing lack of in the network, and I'm just, I was just thinking about this the other day. When applications try to build on chain, instead of going to, let's say, AWS or Google Cloud or any other cloud services that are charging, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just to have your applications built on top of it, why don't you utilize, for example, the layer 2s that are on chain, the decentralized oracles, the decentralized storage, right? And all of that is going to create transactions on chain. On top of that, when you include AI now, if you look at some of the things that people are using AI for right now, anyone that's creating content, anyone that has loads of data somewhere, videos, published articles, published books, they're uploading all that data into an AI agent, right? And that is creating, or it's providing content 24/7. You don't even have to do anything. So the automation part is very important. And also how we have to see how else are we going to utilize AI. AI right now it's growing, and we're kind of just touching the surface right now, if I'm being honest. I'm very looking forward to see what these participants are going to build using AI and building on chain.
Yeah, I mean, Ellis, look, here's the thing. AI agents, I mean, they've been evolving, right? They're
Call it a bot.
exactly, they're trading bots, you know, and we want to bring them into sophisticated systems that are really capable of autonomous decision making, adapting to dynamic conditions in real time. We, unlike the traditional trading bots, they rely on like fixed rules, right? Do this. We want our AI agents to leverage the technologies of our partners, and even not yet, right? Like, I didn't talk about machine learning. I mean, that should be something that we should really be considering. Natural language processing, sentiment analysis. I mean, these are all things that we need that processes the data sets and execution for trading, portfolio management, even content creation, like Sal said. And traditionally, RWAs have been very manual. It's a fragmented process. It's challenging, right? There are probably liquidity constraints. There's opaque pricing. You might need to have some very specific jurisdictions. There's high barriers to entry. We want to see who can build an agent that addresses some of these issues in a meaningful way.
Speaking of, I think you've got a bunch of cool use cases that are fairly, I don't want to call it easy builds, but builds that just need to be put together, right? I was thinking about it earlier. We had talked about Polytrade, right? How cool would it be to have an AI invoice marketplace where you could essentially take an invoice, have an agent then tokenize it, send it out, and have people buy that invoice for you, where you're able to actually get paid immediately rather than wait on funding that's coming out of a client, which God knows how long that takes, right? And then there's like no limitation here.
Yeah, I mean, if you just took, let's think about it this way. Excuse me. Just using the tech stack from the people and projects that are in this dev sprint, right? And using your example of tokenizing an invoice, we could have an authentication agent that confirms identity using Civic.
Yep.
Portfolio management agent suggesting an invoice because they went to Polytrade's marketplace and looked at what's open for an RWA based on some user preferences, right? We can have a risk assessment agent that uses real-time feeds from plugin or Quex. We can optimize trades with ACA Finance, look at the best liquidity pools, find the, use the USDCE that's on the network, use the bridge. We can store the invoice as a fragmented PDF if we wanted to on StoreX. And all of that happens on the XDC network.
Yeah. When you look at some of the AI applications, right? A lot of the AI applications that are being created at the moment, they're being promoted with the intent part, right? The intent is how in human language can I execute something or train the AI to execute it for me on my behalf without my intervention. So the intent behind it is, for example, when you talk about DeFi, I want, like you were saying, I want to find the best pool at the best rate within this parameters, so however you want to define it. And the AI is going to, obviously you have to train it. So, but the intent is the biggest part. You want to make it as simple to use for people to want to use it. And intent is what creates that. You have an intent, you type it out, or you train it to execute it. And that's a huge improvement in how we're advancing with this technology.
Yeah, man. AI.
I'm kind of glad you brought up intents, because that's a huge unlock here, right? So for anybody who's kind of like familiar with where a lot of movement has gone in Web3, right? Is like there's this idea of like there's the kind of like imperative method to interacting with the blockchain, right? You go through all these different steps. You look at all your different trading platforms, all that, Uniswap, whatever. to try to find a good path to go from one chain to another, maybe to arbitrage, something complex like that, right? And then Intense came along as like, wouldn't it be great if you could just say something simple and all that's worked out behind the scenes? Maybe my biggest claim to fame in the industry was I was in the chat where like Intense as the term got worked out and like the narrative kind of got established. And it was interesting seeing with like more conventional non-AI tools that going from a concept goal to seeing these companies attempt to implement it more traditionally in like all the walls they would run up against. Saw companies spin up, saw companies fail, all of this. And the missing part was that agent part, right? Because the number of variables that sprawl out from that motivation is incredible. To try to build that manually is essentially impossible because a bunch of people tried and a bunch of people fell on their face. So yeah, that's the way to think of it, right? Like, how do you go from somebody having to be savvy enough to like walk through every single step in the process, know every platform to look at, know what the term arbitrage is, whatever they're trying to do, right? And actually be able to do that quickly versus just be able to say something simple that they want to do, and you are actually able to give this thing the tools that it needs. And what's exciting about that is, Jonathan, me and you were in a Twitter space where this idea came up, right? But like, there's this brief window where all the big players, right, the powerful people, the Googles, the BlackRocks, whatever, for them to build a tool like that, there's a huge amount of kind of approval jumps they have to go through, right? There's liabilities there, all of that kind of thing. But you as an individual or as a small team building in like your bedroom or like at the coffee shop or something like that, right? When you're playing with that to see what you can do for yourself, you don't have those hurdles. So for this small window, you actually, in a way, hold more power than a lot of these big players because you're not necessarily beholden to those compliance portions. Now, of course, if you actually try to push that to market, that's different. But when you're playing with it, you get a lot of freedom here, and that can kind of be a secret superpower here. So if you're building for yourself, go wild.
Yeah, I'll say this. Look, trading automation and you know, wallet, talk to your wallet. Those agents are what's probably leading today's AI applications, right? But I don't want you to lose the focus that tokenized RWAs and the market is valued to be somewhere in the, you know, I forget the numbers that they're throwing out, but somewhere in the $15 billion range, you know, up to trillions by 2030. You know, they're throwing out some crazy numbers. And I think AI agents are really poised to play a crucial role in scaling and optimizing applications that can help onboard users into real world asset applications. And so I think we should probably talk about maybe transition a little bit, Austin, into the overview of the hack.
Say, let's talk about how to get started, how to sign up, walk them through the pages.
How to get into the Dev Sprint. Yeah.
So guys, you will all see the domain here down at the bottom. It is pretty straightforward, xdc.hackerearth.com. We've chosen HackerEarth as the rails of which we will run the XDC Agent Sprint on. So that's where you will actually submit your project. That's where you can find resources, sponsor information, bounty information, anything that's just kind of getting started. Outside of that, join the Telegram. Do not forget to join the Telegram. This is where everybody is going to live during the sprint. There are weekly workshops from all of the different supporting partners. All of the different workshop recordings will be listed back on the Telegram too. But why don't we dive into the microsite, talk a little bit about what people can expect to see. So Austin, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, 100%. And before anybody tries to manually type in that Telegram address, if you go to that HackerEarth page, it's right at the top in the overview. There's like join the private Telegram group. So don't drive yourself crazy trying to screenshot and type that out manually. Yeah, perfect. You can see it right there. So before I dive into this though, I know like from my personal background, coming as a lot of people coming through as like a Web 2 engineer, that type of thing, you know a lot about all this infrastructure and stuff like that, but suddenly you get thrown into the world of finance and you get all these words thrown at you that you don't necessarily understand. Ellis covered kind of what an RWA is, where like, Bitcoin is digital gold, but if you actually tokenize a gold bar in a warehouse somewhere, now you have a real world asset, which is an RWA. What is trade finance? I'm going to put you on the spot here, Jonathan, to give a quick overview of what the term trade finance covers, because that's going to come up a lot in this event. Or if any of you kind of want to cover that, because that's a broad term.
I don't have an official definition, but often it is the trade between companies and how it's financed. So if you're shipping goods from company A to company B, it takes a while to get there. And so there are letters of credit, there's bills of lading, there's a lot of documentation that goes along with it. And right now it's a very manual process. So if I wanted to ship a system that I built from here to Germany, I'd have to go get paperwork from a bank. I'd have to put money into escrow. I'd have to have, or the person buying it would have to put money into escrow. They'd have to have paperwork. The banks would have to talk to each other. It's a very arduous process. I can't explain it in a sentence, but the entire goal of XDC is to reduce the friction of that process, right? And then ultimately allow SMEs, small and medium enterprises, to get financing. So if you're shipping something, you don't get paid that invoice until it's received, right? But you could go put that invoice on a platform like XDC's Trade Finex, and let's say it's $1 million invoice, but you won't see that money for 3 months. You can go get financing against that invoice, and you'll have to pay a percentage back, but you can then go use that invoice to get financing so you can continue your business. And so there's a formal definition of trade finance, but this was not it. But those are some of the factors that people are trying to solve right now today on the network, whether it be through digitization of documentation, whether it's through providing that marketplace where people can load their official documentation or what they want financed, get the financing, etc.
Okay. Awesome. I just wanted to ask that question before people went and Googled it and got those terrible official definitions, which tell you absolutely nothing and are an absolute pain. So thank you for covering that better than their Google search would give them. So yeah, let's dive in right now into the microsite. This is the xdc.hackerearth.com where you can register, get your dates, find the Telegram, all that stuff. So you have your good overview on the side here. You see your prizes, all that. You have your, your themes here, kind of what's being covered, objectives, the special prizes with the sponsors. So you can really dive in and see exactly what they're offering, kind of their criteria for judging. We covered that at the top of the call, but if you want more details on it, it's right here. And make sure you hit the more button. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that. So if you don't hit that, you're going to miss some good opportunities. So
there's just a lot of sponsors, right?
There are. Like people piled on with this, and like the descriptions are great.
Hit the more underneath the. Yeah, I don't want you to forget that one.
Even I missed a more button. So like, yeah, up to 50K. So watch out for the more buttons. Make sure you're hitting the more buttons or you're going to regret it. We have judging rules. Teams is helpful for kind of like establishing yourself, submissions. We got FAQs, but this is where it's going to get beneficial is we have the Dev Sprint handbook. XDC docs, video resources, and sponsor resources. So if you have a question, hit these first. This is where you're going to find them. But let's start here with the Dev Sprint handbook. So we kind of put this together for you all to help navigate the process. At the top, we got quick links, of course, register here, quick links to XDC documentation, your testnet faucet. The testnet is called Apothem. So that's the keyword you're going to look for in this. If you're not too familiar with XDC, it's Apothem is the name of the testnet. And then here, this is an important one. This is our XDC plugin for ELIZA. So this is going to do a lot of heavy lifting for you. So make sure you get in here, get comfortable with it. Tomorrow, I'll be doing
Austin.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry about cutting you off.
Oh, no,
you are doing a IRL tomorrow about
Yes.
XDC and ELIZA. I've got a lot of questions and DMs, etc. It is not required to use ELIZA in your project to obtain the bounties. So I just want to make that clear. It's nice. It gives you a head start, but it's not required. If you want to go use a different framework, by all means, please use what you're comfortable developing in. We want to see solving real-world solution applications.
Yeah, that's a really good note to make. This this plugin is here for your own convenience. Like, even if you are using ELIZA and the plugin doesn't suit your needs, you can use ELIZA, Goat, something like that directly. You don't have to use the plugin. You don't have to use any of those technologies. They're there to make your life easier if you don't have an alternative that
you just have to build on just build on XDC.
If you guys check out the little blurb there, that is the main requirement and really the only requirement where the projects need to integrate XDC. If a project does not integrate XDC, it does not qualify, period. And that is true for any of the bounties that come up. So when you're building, make sure that you are using Apothem and make sure that you're launching on XDC now.
Perfect. Here, program focus areas.
Yeah,
coming down, we've got our.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I just, it's a little lag. Sorry. Go ahead, Austin.
Oh, no. You're good. Again, like I made the point, only requirement, integrate XDC, but it is helpful to have some focus areas that kind of help you ideate. You can find those here: AI trading and risk management, DeFi automation, personal AI assistance, predictive analysis, RWA automation, intelligent DAOs, and of course, wildcard. If you have a fantastic idea, don't break the back of your idea to fit it into a box it doesn't belong in. That's just a good rule of anything in life. But yeah, so if you have a great idea and you're like, does it fit? Don't be afraid to send it. We have timeline details, and then we've got a setup checklist just to help guide you through this. Of course, join the Telegram. Gonna hammer that again. And then we have some deliverable guidelines to kind of help you stay on track. We've got our incentives. Now, mentorship and support. Of course, like, if it's a very basic technical question, just make sure you've read through the docs. Because even if we get on a one-on-one and it's like a very basic technical question that is immediately answered by the docs, I'm going to be like, hey, let's go read that. If you still have a question, come back, something like that. But if you have a more subtle question, talking about the direction of the product, if certain things make sense, things like that, it's a good idea to get a one-on-one mentorship session. That you'll just schedule directly with us. And through that, you can kind of help maybe like workshop the spirit of the idea, if certain things make sense, if it's kind of aligned with the program. Or if you need very, very specialized help, you can kind of explain that, and we'll try to connect you with somebody who might be able to answer that like very specific help that you need. And then coming through here, now we have technical resources, and here we have the more kind of broad developer documentation. Again, you have your faucet, link to your Explorer, your standard network settings that you need, wallet configuration that you're going to need. And then coming into Eliza OS, if you are going to use it, we have the repo, quick setup guides. If you haven't used it before, it's actually really simple to get up and running. The basics of how you use Eliza is it basically gives you a framework for prompt design and gives you certain ways to like interact with things that would normally be kind of a pain. It just gives you kind of a way to hook into endpoints and to have some framework to kind of design out the possibilities and personality and everything of it. So it's not a technically daunting thing if you haven't approached it before. If you have any experience in development, it's a breeze to get set up with. And then we have starter repos. Again, like we said, in a lot of cases, just using XDC makes sense, but your classic ERC20 token is like the perfect place to just, I haven't used this platform, let me figure out how to use it. There's a few examples here of deploying a ERC20, which is called an XRC20 on XDC. So don't get thrown off by that little prefix. XRC is EVM compatible, so porting a contract from Ethereum over to XDC, if you already have something that you're wanting to use, there's not really anything that you need to customize there. It's pretty much just a one-to-one comparison with slightly different prefixes to the contract standard names.
I want to add just a caveat to what you're saying. Previously, XDC used to have just the XDC header on the addresses, so that was kind of a little bit of an issue from somebody coming from, let's say, Ethereum or any other EVM project, right? Trying to port it to XDC. But now all the RPCs across the network have both capabilities for 0x and XDC. So if you work through 0x format in your addresses for the smart contracts and things like that, you should be good to go for Apathon and also a mainnet.
Yeah. Okay. Great background detail there. So yeah, there's here Foundry, Hard Hat, Remix, whatever you're most comfortable with. So those will get you up and running nice and quickly. And then demo day readiness checklist. Make sure you've got deliverables that make sense here. Don't throw us a 30-minute demo video. People have done it. It's a good way to make the judges mad.
Yeah, Austin. I think the big thing here, and you've touched upon a lot of it already, is how to get started.
Yeah.
Right. And where to go. I would say that we're running up on the time here. Ellis, if there are any other questions from the community. I'm going to go with no.
Muted. Doesn't look like there's too many questions coming in right now, at least on the general chat.
All right. And so I will make, and I feel badly because these are probably Austin's words, but I will, the final word, right? And you can see it on the handbook is very simply, this is not a weekend hackathon. It's a development sprint for real builders. So you're here to architect intelligent agents, deploy real smart contracts, push the edge of RWA on-chain automation, and launch your project into the XDC ecosystem. With that, you have a real shot of funding, partnership, and platform support. This RWAi Dev Sprint has 10 ecosystem partners in the XDC ecosystem here to help you and support you. If you can build AI agents around their projects, it will continue to flourish within the ecosystem and gain traction within XDC. Those are my final words, but I think they were awesome.
Perfect.
Ellis, any closing words from the Cracked Labs side?
I think that, like you've been saying, Jonathan, this is first and foremost, this is not a hackathon. This is an area for AI agent builders to come in to interface with XDC network, of which they've never really been able to do so prior to, at least in the instance of AI agents and trade finance. And I think that the biggest thing is be vocal, be active, be in the Telegram, ask questions. Don't just sit back and think that you're going to be able to ship within a weekend or something like that. Now, we all are pretty aware that most of the AI agent builds that are out there right now are getting increasingly easier to make these things possible, which is why it's a sprint and it's not a 2-month long incubation or something like that. So get in, ask questions, show up, be on time for the workshops, try and actually get things done. Because like we mentioned, there's 78,000 in prizes, and then there's 50,000 in follow-on prizes that are actually available for qualifiable projects. So there's money that's up for grabs. There's support. XDC Network is here to support. Same with Cracked Labs. And I would say the best thing that anybody can do is if you're thinking about joining, join. Hop on Hacker Earth, go to the link down at the bottom of the screen, register for the event, join the Telegram, and start finding teams.
Your sweet spot is going to be finding the spot where the technology breaks and taking one step back. So aim for that breaking point, and then only step back far enough to have something that you can show on demo.
Yeah, to be clear, we're not looking for a finished product. No one can build what I'm asking for. If you can, awesome. But I don't think in 4 weeks we're going to see a polished, finished product that can hit all the steps. Get something that is working, that can show the idea, and then at pitch day, really break out what that idea looks like, how you've architected it, and where it could go. And that's what's going to make you successful, is seeing the big picture and developing a piece for the long run. And with that, I think we'll close it out there unless there's anything else to say.
Nope. No,
Build on XDC.
Let's do
All right,
it.
guys. Thanks, Sal. Thanks,
Thanks,
Ellis.
Guys,
Thanks, Austin. Bye-bye.
All right. Awesome.